This is part 3 in our series on automating the entry of service delivery records and associated program, logic model, and outcome data. I'm going to branch out a little bit in this particular clip and provide you information on a new way of automating service delivery data records that is more complete than what we've covered in the previous 2 video clips. I Freudian slip there. I started to say checklist. That actually is the name of the means of adding a new set of service delivery records. We call it a service delivery checklist, and that's simply because the user interface that's provided is in a checklist format. For a system administrator, the first step in creating a new service delivery checklist item is to provide a name for that checklist item. You could use ones that previously exist, assuming that you've created some in the past and not already filled them in, or you can edit the values that are in those that have already been created. But let's, for the purposes of what we're doing here today, start fresh from scratch. So in administration, in category codes, again, is where you would set this up. And you're looking for the category type service delivery checklist. So if I open this up, we'll get down to service. And there's the item we're looking for, service delivery checklist. Now you see in here the list of 6 or 7 records that had previously been entered. Some of these, and this has been done in our test data set for both testing, training, and demonstration purposes. But we're going to start out fresh here and pretend that these don't exist and add a new one, starting as though we were starting from scratch. So we're going to click the plus button on the toolbar to get a new record. The 6-letter identifier in here only has to be unique within this category. In other words, I can't use test 9 or any of these other ones that are already in use. I have to create something new. But beyond that, that 6-letter code is not really used for anything, so it can be pretty much anything you like. And we're going to name this Annie's house. As such. We'll save that. And now, well, we have a new listing, and the display order here also does not matter. By the way, it can be, it's not relevant. It won't make any difference in terms of the way it's ultimately displayed to the end user. So we just have a new entry now that we know has no other data connected to it because we just put it in. And we're going to go ahead and describe how we go about creating a new checklist item based on that Annie's house record in category codes. The next step is to create or use an existing record. It doesn't matter. If you've got an existing record that has all of the fields set the way you want them to come in an automated fashion when this new Annie's house checklist item is selected, you could use that. I'm going to create a new record just so we can, go through the entire process. So we're going to just create a new service delivery, plain vanilla service delivery record. The person that we're creating it for doesn't matter. It might be wise if you're going to delete this afterwards or you don't want it counted in the real world. You could use a test client name. We have a John Tester here that we've used in the past for that purpose. So what we have now is a new empty service delivery record for Mr. Tester. And then the rest of the fields of that service delivery record you can fill in with any values that you like, keeping in mind that all of those fields are going to be filled in automatically in the future when your user chooses this particular checklist item. So we'll go down the values here and down the fields and put in items for all of them. Telephone call for how contacted. Associated program. Since we're calling this Annie's house, we're going to presume that it's a housing-related service delivery record, so I'll choose a housing counseling program. Logic model goal, we can choose one of those. For our housing counseling program, we have 2 separate logic models associated with that, and these are the outcomes that are associated with those 2 logic models, so we can choose any one of those. Let's say that just the first one for the sake of argument, so it's easy to find again, but it could be any one. Service delivery category, well, what do we have in the way of housing? We have housing and utilities, so we'll use that. In the subcategory, we've got assistance with various things. Public housing, assistance with arranging needed home repair, let's choose that one. The type, of course, is whatever you choose it to be. We'll say it's a direct service. The method can be staff observation or an agency provided service or a family interview, any one of these. Let's choose something sort of semi out of the ordinary, record review. The result can be anything that we like. Let's say that we want a completion code, so we'll say service ongoing, and then the nature of the need is whatever is appropriate. Trying to find one that might be appropriate to what we're, let's say, pending employment, which is a sort of a generic. Over on the right-hand side, we can also fill in these fields. So referred by is the data entry person by default. You could change that to something else. We can put a provider or a referred to in here. Let's make it another program just for the heck of it, and we'll say Adult Protective Services and Homeless Prevention, and say OK. So that now becomes our referred to. Okay, at this point, we're probably finished, although it is possible to put in other items on other pages, but presumably this is going to give you enough detail to provide what you want in most cases. So I'm going to save this record. It'll ask me if I want an enrollment record because we have that set up on an automated fashion, so we'll just say OK on that. We could delete this record later if we choose to do so. OK, now the way to add all of these field values to that previously created Annie's House checklist item, service delivery checklist item, is to right-click, and this is sort of obscure, but it is shown on the tooltip, to right-click on the copy button. So if you hover the mouse, go mouse over on the copy button, you see the tooltip comes up, and the end of that says, we'll get it back up again, right-click to set checklist defaults. So that's what we want to do. We want to right-click, and then we choose from the listing that we had seen in category codes, which of the service delivery checklist items that we're going to apply these values for. And Annie's House is the one we want, so we check that. There's a button here that will allow us to check for others of these that are empty, meaning they don't have any attached values yet. So if you've put these in a long time ago and you've forgotten which ones have been used, you could click that button and it would show you which ones are empty that you could potentially use. But we're going to continue on at this point and say OK. And then it asks us to confirm that all of the current field values will be set for the service delivery checklist Annie's House. We say yes. So now, exercising this whole thing is simply a matter of adding a new record and choosing service delivery checklist. And you can do that by clicking plus on the toolbar, and instead of just service delivery, we want SD checklist. We choose the person that we want to add it for, and we're going to pick somebody else entirely. Mr. Goggle Eyes. And then we choose the checklist item. So as this is the interface that your user would see. Now you can, in fact, so we'll choose Annie's House. We could check other items as well. And if we do, we will get additional service delivery records, one for each of these. So if I were to check shelter here and food basket and then say OK, I would be getting 3 separate service delivery records for Mr. How do we? We chose the. We haven't displayed the client that we selected yet, but it was Mr. Goggle Eyes. So I only want one, just for illustration purposes. So I'm going to uncheck these and say. And well, one more thing we need to mention here, and that is that the entry date will default to today's date. But if you want it to be something other than today's date, let's say last month, so we'll set this back to 9. And then we'll make it 9/26, just to be something different than today's date. We say OK, and what we get then is a new record for Mr. Goggle Eyes, and you see all of the fields are already filled in. Now, since we have also, as has been illustrated in previous clips, set up the logic model goal, and we had the system constant setting set to make that an automatic addition to the outcomes page. Once we've saved this and come over to the outcomes page, this low-income participants obtain safe and effective housing will have automatically been added both as the logic model and that particular outcome goal. So in a fairly simple set of mouse clicks and menu selections, or however you want to term it. Let's do it again. Plus SD checklist. Choose the person you want to put it in for. Zvi Fabio. Okay. Choose Annie's house. Choose the date if you want to change that. Say okay, and you're done. And you've got a whole new service delivery record with all the fields filled in, and the outcome will have been added automatically.